As many of you know, I remained extremely loyal to Subterrors all the way through Spirals getting Double Helix, which was when I finally realized Konami didn't care about Subterrors as much as I did. And what I learned from that experience was that whatever TCG exclusive archetype for this current season, whichever one looks best initially, doesn't mean that that one's actually going to be the one that Konami's going to focus on. We saw this with Subterrors and Spirals. Subterrors right out of the gate looked a lot more competitive than Spirals, but eventually, as we all know, Spirals became a dominant force in competition, whereas Subterrors basically never saw any competitive play. And I think this year, with Vendreads and the FA archetype, I'm learning that I'm going to jump ship from Vendreads to FAs. Now, we haven't seen the Extreme Force Vendread cards, but I can already tell that Konami really cares about FAs and they really want to push them to be a great deck, because the 4 cards in Extreme Force that have now been all revealed officially on the Konami European page, they're actually insane. And I don't think the FAs were ever terrible. Well, maybe the deck itself couldn't really come together yet, but I think that FA Pit Stop is one of the most ridiculous quick play spells ever made, pretty much, for an archetype. The problem was that it was stuck in sort of a not really good archetype, and FA Pit Stop is just incredible. So all you have to do is reduce an FA monster's level by 2, and then you draw 1 card for every, well, you draw a number of cards equal to the number of FA Pit Stops in your graveyard plus 1. That means that the first copy is an Upstart Goblin, the second copy is a Pot of Greed, and the third copy is basically a card to demise without any of the drawbacks. That's incredible, and if it was in any other deck besides FAs, I always said in live streams that this card was just going to break the game, but it was stuck in FAs. And then it has a graveyard effect as well that lets you banish it in the graveyard to special summon an FA. So it's a Monster Reborn in the graveyard. Now, you can't do that on the turn that you activate this card, but I don't think that really matters, because already you can see a card that starts out at worst as a 1-card Upstart Goblin and Monster Reborn seems pretty darn good, but it didn't have like a good home. And I think with the new FA cards, which we're going to look at all 4 of them today, you can see that this deck's actually going to be a force to be reckoned with. We're going to talk about the old FA cards that you want to play once these new cards come out as well. But I just want to show you Pit Stop because that card's ridiculous, and I want you to look at these new cards in the context of if they're in a deck with a card such as FA Pit Stop. So first of all, the 2 first cards that were released were a Tuner and a Synchro. Now, I'm not super excited about the Synchro, but we're going to look at them both. So the first of all, let's take a look at the Tuner monsters. Level 1 Wind Machine Tuner effect monster, 0 attack, 0 defense. Now, those stats mean that you can 1-for-1 it into play. You can also machine dupe this card, and you're going to see some parallels to Spiral Quick Fix, almost certainly, because it is very similar. So if it's in the hand or graveyard, you can target 1 FA monster you control whose current level is higher than its original level, because if you remember, the FA archetype revolves around increasing their own levels, and then they gain bonus effects, but we'll get to that in a second. And then you special summon this card, reduce the target's level by the difference between its current and original level, and if you do that, this card's level becomes equal to the amount reduced. So that's kind of a complicated way of saying, like, let's say you have a level 5 FA monster. What happens is you special summon this card, it becomes level 1, and the FA monster becomes level 4. So pretty much, this is a free special summon that then lets you perform a synchro summon of whatever level the FA monster was while it was on the board. So it's kind of like Destrudo in that sense, except Destrudo always makes a level 7 synchro monster, where this one just always makes whatever level the FA monster currently is. And so that's really cool. This effect, both the effects of this card are once per turn, as you probably have read, but that's a really good special summon effect for a tuner monster. But then when you also put it into the context of that, if this card is normal or special summon, you get to add an FA field spell from your deck to your hand. Boy, this card gets incredible. There are 3 FA field spells. Every single FA release has had a field spell, and those cards get really good with these new releases as well. We're going to talk about those in a second, but already you can just see this is a level 1 tuner monster that can be machine duped, and it can be 1-for-1 that also revives itself, that also searches a card on a summon, and you can only use each effect once per turn, but notice this card doesn't banish itself when it's used for a synchro summon or anything like that, like Quick Fix says. So you can just use this every single turn, and you can quickly see how the advantage would build up there. I'd also see this card comboed with something like Foolish Burial. Now, the synchro monster that they want you to summon is big. It's not super exciting, mostly because Its effects are a little conditional, but it is a level 9 light machine synchro monster. Like all the normal FA monsters besides the tuner, this card gains 300 attack for every level, so it'll come out at 2700 attack. That's pretty big, and each time an FA spell trap card or effect is activated, you can increase the level of the card by 1. That's the exact same effect as pretty much all the other FA monsters besides the tuner monster, so you can kind of see the level modulation going on here. So if it's 11 or higher, level 11 or higher, it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. Now, is that very difficult? Absolutely not, because all you need to do is pretty much activate a field spell, and then all the field spells have other effects, so then you can activate the field spell's other effect, and this card is instantly level 11. That's not very hard, especially when you consider that the tuner monster that's making this thing searches the field spell already. But if it's level 13 or higher, because if a card doesn't say that it's restricted to level 12, you actually can have it higher than level 12. If it's level 13 or higher, you get to Monster Reborn an FA monster once per turn. That's ridiculous. We can already see here, even the worst card of the 4, which is the Synchro Monster, it's pretty darn good. It has a Monster Reborn effect. It's huge. It can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. It's absolutely insane. It might take a little bit of work to get there, because you'll most likely have to use not only the tuner monster and the FA monster that you're reducing the level of, but you'll probably have to use a third card to summon it. Although there is a potential, I suppose, if you get a normal FA monster to level 9, that you can then summon this with like 1 card, and that's pretty incredible. But let's move on to the 2 cards that I'm really excited about. So the field spell is now FA City Grand Prix. So this is the 3rd field spell for the deck, and you increase levels of all FA monsters on the field by 2 during both the main phase and the battle phase. Now, why does that matter? Well, it matters because in the past, the 2 field spells that we have either increased the FA monsters by 2 during the main phase or the battle phase. So this is the first one to actually give that boost during both phases, and that's really cool. Also, your opponent cannot target FA monsters you control with card effects. That's just during any phase, so they're all now Cosmos spaceships. And then, like all the other field spells, if this face-up card on field is destroyed by a card effect, you get to search an FA card from your deck to your hand, except itself. Now, that last effect is really important, because let's take a look at the final card, which is another insane quick play spell, FA Test Run. So keep in mind that every single FA field spell gets a search when it's destroyed. So let's read this card. Quick play spell card, target 1 FA monster you control, change its battle position, then destroy 1 card on the field. So that is it's a non-targeting Regeki break that requires, the only setup you need is controlling 1 FA monster. Like, what? That's incredible. And yes, it's once per turn, just like with Pit Stop, but now we have a quick play spell card that's at worst an Upstart Goblin, a Monster Reborn, and this card is a quick play spell card that first destroys a card without targeting, and then also it has the same during the main phase, except the turn it's at the graveyard. You can banish from the graveyard. Now this one is not a Monster Reborn, but it is an emergency teleport, and the drawback is that, well, the quote-unquote drawback is that you have to destroy a card you control, but that's really good because you pop the field spell. So this one card can destroy an opponent's card for free without targeting, and then on a different turn, you destroy a field spell to get a search, and then emergency teleport a guy out of your deck. That's just like, that's so much power packed into one card. I didn't think something would be better than FA Pit Stop, but this card is incredible as well. Now, possibly the biggest sort of downside of this deck is we still don't have a ton of great monsters. So we have the Tuner monster, but the main 2 level 4 monsters you're going to be playing, well, the best one is FA Hang On Mock. This was actually released in the first wave of support. You can see that it has the same attack gain as a Synchro monster. It also gains attack when your opponent, or when you activate an FA spell or trap card or effect. So you can easily get this card up to pretty high levels. And then this card is unaffected by effects from your opponent's monsters whose original level rank is lower than this card's level. Now, that doesn't really help you with Link monsters, but with everything else, this card's pretty tough to deal with, much like the Cliff Fort monsters of a couple years back. So the important thing here is that this thing can't be affected by monsters that have a lower level, original level or rank than this card's level. It gains levels when you activate spells, traps, or effects of FA spell traps. And then if it's level 7 or higher, it's a Dark Law. Any card sent to your opponent's graveyard is banished instead. So this card is pretty beefy when you have a field spell. Now, please take in mind, if you activate the new field spell, this card goes to level 5, and then it goes to level 7 because the field spell gives it 2 levels during your main and battle phase. So all you have to do is activate this field spell, and this card is instantly really tough for your opponent to deal with, not even taking into account the other quick play spells. Now, the other really good one is FA Whip Crosser. Now, Whip Crosser, its bonus effect for having the level is like, it stops hand traps. That's what it does. So your opponent cannot discard or send cards from their hand to the graveyard to activate a card effect. So it completely turns off your opponent's hand traps. Now, I will say that the other effect of it, your opponent must pay 300 life points to activate the effective monster whose original level rank is lower than this card's level. That's not very good, but you're really just trying to use the anti-hand trap effect, and you have to have enough monsters to actually make plays. Now, there is a couple other FA monsters, but they're not nearly as important as these two ones. But if we look at the field spells, you can see what I'm talking about. So they both do have the, when they're destroyed by a card effect, you get to add an FA card from deck to your hand, except itself. One of them gives them 2 levels during the battle phases, and then when an FA monster destroys an opponent's turn by battle, you get to draw a card. So that's sort of like the aggressive field spell. And then the defensive field spell is that it gives the FA monsters levels during your main phase only, but if an FA monster you control is destroyed by battle, you get to discard 1 random card from your opponent's hand. So the thing that you're trying to do here is you're trying to use FA Circuit Grand Prix on your turn to sort of gain card advantage by drawing cards, and then when it gets to your opponent's turn, you're trying to use Off-Road Grand Prix to discard cards out of your opponent's hands when they run your guys over by battle. Although that might not always happen because your monsters are going to be really high levels with a lot of attack points. So I think going forward, obviously the new field spell is a staple 3 of because it makes your guys non-targetable, and I think the original field spell Grand Prix is probably a 3 or a 2 of because it gives you more card advantage, but I'm not so sure about Off-Road Grand Prix just because it doesn't actually advance your game state, it just sort of deals with your opponent's cards. Now, all of these cards on TCG Player right now are less than 2 cents. Every single FA card you can buy for less than 2 cents, which means this deck is incredibly cheap. And there are some other cards you can add to it that I think are going to be important when this deck comes out. Something that a lot of people have tried out is Rise-Bell the Star Psyker, or Psyker, I guess you pronounce it. This card can increase cards' levels during either player's turn, so that can sort of pump up your FAs permanently. That's pretty cool. It also has 1500 attack, 1500 defense, so it's not like a 0 attack monster or anything. So that card's pretty cool. Could help with synchro summons as well. You can also buy a lot of rank 4s for this deck, but you can pretty much buy any sort of ranked card because these cards do climb levels. I think in the rank 4 department, one of the most important cards is Lightning Chidori. Now, this card is not expensive at all. It's less than 30 cents on TCG Player. So you can see how you can basically buy this entire deck for like less than $10, which is just crazy. Even if you play something such as Ties of Brethren, it's still pretty cheap. Another card that a lot of people have been playing in the original FA builds, and that very well could spike in price because it only has 1 printing, is Marshalling Field. Now, Marshalling Field is a trap card, and you cannot special summon monsters except machine type monsters, although pay attention because all the cards that we've talked about have been machine monsters, and like a Synchro is a machine monster, so you're probably not going to be wanting to special summon anything besides machine type monsters, and really you're trying to control the board with Hang on Mock and the Whip Cross guy just because they have so many good on-field effects. But anyway, you can't special summon monsters except machine monsters. Once per turn, you can declare level from 5 to 9. All level 5 or higher machine monsters you control become that level. So that's like the main effect here, is that when you have a level 5 or higher FA monster, which is pretty much all the time because all you have to have is level 4 and then any FA spell to increase its level, you activate this card and then you can change that monster's level to anywhere between 5 and 9. And that's important not only because it gives you the bonus effects of being level 7 or higher, but also because this lets you then synchro summon anything between 5 and 9 with the new tuner monster. So if you really want to pinpoint which monster you're trying to synchro summon, and then more importantly, you can actually get rid of this card on your field with FA Test Run. Test Run does not have to target an FA monster to destroy. It just has to be a face-up card you control. So then you can destroy the marshalling field to allow yourself to synchro summon any monster between 5 and 9, and that is just ridiculous. So this deck is really coming together nicely, and it's pretty surprising because the Vendread cards seem to have a lot more potential in the first set, but their first two waves now have been pretty disappointing, where this FA wave is actually just incredible, and all these cards are so powerful and such a high card quality. You know, coming from someone that played Subterrors, and the best Subterror release was the last one, which had 2 really good cards and 2 sort of okay-ish cards. The fact that FA still have 1 wave of support and all 4 cards in this release are just insane tells me a lot about how Konami feels about this deck, and the fact that you can get it on a budget is just ridiculous. So anyway, that is my FA sort of analysis going into Extreme Force. I think these cards are quite powerful, and you can get them on a budget. If you're looking to buy all these cards before the new ones come out, make sure to go to tcgplayer.com. There is a link in the description. They do pretty much have the best prices for all these cards. Like I said, they're all like 2 cents each, so you can pretty much build the deck for at least under $10, and that's with Ties of Brethren. But if you're only trying to buy the common cards, I mean, we're talking like under $5, and that's pretty cool. So anyway, I'll see you guys later. I look forward to Extreme Force, and yes, I will review the new Vendread cards out of Extreme Force whenever those get leaked, but these cards already are looking pretty great.